Welcome to Fast Break, a go-to for anything and everything NBA related. In today's video, we're going to be diving in and ranking the greatest series comebacks in NBA history. When looking at numerous series and teams that will qualify for this list, history tells you that the toughest obstacle to overcome in an NBA playoff series is a 3-1 game deficit. Considering no team in the history of the NBA playoffs has come back from being down 3-0, these teams all made a treacherous climb back from being down 3-1. Some went on to win championships, while others had their season end shortly after. Either way, these series have all gone down in history in one way or another. Starting off with number 5 on our list, the 2020 Western Conference Semifinals. 2020 was a season like no other. A worldwide pandemic resulted in the NBA season being canceled on March 11. It wouldn't be until late July that seeding games, playing games, and the playoffs as a whole would begin. But with a rapidly spreading virus, the NBA put a plan in place to play the rest of the season in a bubble at Disney World in Orlando. Restrictions included no fans, no family, and no leaving. This made for one of the most unique and interesting NBA seasons of all time. 3 seed, the Denver Nuggets, looked to make some noise in the playoffs, taking on the Utah Jazz in the first round. This series was epic and certainly an all-timer. Donovan Mitchell and Jamal Murray had 3 40-plus point performances each. Not only that, but going into Game 5, the Nuggets went down 3-1. Nikola Jokic and Jamal Murray led the charge as Denver rattled off 3 straight wins to complete the comeback. The Nuggets then had to go toe-to-toe with the LA Clippers, who Vegas had as the favorites that year. It looked like they got it right too, as the Clippers cruised to a 120-97 win in Game 1. But the Nuggets got up early in Game 2 and never looked back with the help of a 26-18 game from Jokic. LA responded in a 113-107 win with a 32-point performance from Paul George. In Game 4, the Clippers star Kawhi Leonard showed out, 30, 11, and 9, just 1 assist shy of a playoff triple-double. Kawhi's effort proved to be enough as the Clippers got up early in the first half and never looked back, paid back for what the Nuggets had done to them in Game 2. Going into Game 5, the Nuggets faced 3-1 for the second straight series. Could they replicate what they did against Utah to the odds-on favorite? Well, going into the last minute of Game 5, the Nuggets were up 2 and Michael Porter Jr. made a clutch 3 to put them up 5 and seal the game. Game 6 saw Jokic put up a monster 34, 14, and 7 on 59% shooting. Clearly shook. The Clippers had no answer for Jokic, even with Kawhi and Paul George combining for 58 points. The Nuggets won Game 6 111-98. Denver clearly had all the momentum in their shoulder in Game 7. It was only a 2-point game at halftime, but in the second half, Denver came out swinging, outscoring the Clippers 50-33 on their way to another epic 3-1 series comeback. Murray stepped up and dropped 40 on 57% shooting, while Jokic had 16, 22, and 13. Kawhi and Paul George struggled, only able to muster 24 points between the two of them. The Nuggets went on to play the Lakers in the Western Conference Finals, but lost in 5 games. Though they didn't make the finals, only 13 NBA teams have come back from a 3-1 series lead. 2020 Denver Nuggets made history, becoming the only team in NBA history to overcome a 3-1 deficit twice in a single playoff run. Moving to number 4, the 1979 Eastern Conference Finals. The stage was set as the defending champs and top-seeded Washington Bullets, led by Elvin Hayes, took on the second-seed San Antonio Spurs, who had a 78-79 scoring champ George Gervin at the helm. With the Spurs blowing out the Bullets in Game 1, Washington came back with a vengeance and a blowout of their own over the Spurs in Game 2. San Antonio then won a close Game 3 and took Game 4 on the back of Gervin's 42-point performance. At this point, the Spurs had the Bullets reeling. With a 3-1 lead, it was only a matter of time before San Antonio moved on to the NBA Finals, but Washington had other ideas. The Bullets bounced back in Game 5, where every starter scoring at least 12 points, a complete team effort while facing elimination. Leading into a must-win Game 7 in San Antonio, the Bullets were well aware that another strong team effort was necessary if they wanted to force a Game 7. As Wes Unseld struggled, Washington got much-needed help off the bench, with Greg Ballard going 8 for 11 from the field for 19 points, and Larry Wright hitting 6 of his 8 shots for 12 points. The efficiency of their role players ended up being the slight edge they needed to squeak out the win. Game 7 in Washington. 19,000 in attendance and the place was rowdy as it gets. With all of the momentum and the crowd on their side, the Bullets finally had the Spurs on the ropes, and they certainly responded. George Gervin put on a clinic, pouring in 43 points and scoring from all over the floor. It took a team effort to stop Gervin on this particular evening, but the resilience of the Bullets squad had been on full display the 2 games prior. Elvin Hayes had a solid 25 and 15 to pair with 3 steals and 7 blocks on the defensive end. But it wasn't enough for Gervin's Game 7 heroics. They needed more scoring, and Tom Henderson and Wes Unseld were a combined 0 for 14 from field. Luckily, their teammate Bob Dandridge had one of his best games ever. With 2 minutes left, the Bullets trailed by 6 and the Spurs were looking to close out. And again, Washington responds. With 2 outstanding defensive possessions, clutch free throws from Unseld, and Bob Dandridge rolling inside for a layup off the glass, the game was all tied up. Gervin goes down and misses. The Bullets then take the lead off the 2 clutch free throws from Ballard. The Spurs respond with a turnaround jumper from James Silas, tie game. In the huddle, it was obvious who was taking the last shot for the Bullets. Even San Antonio knew, but it didn't stop him. Bob Dandridge dribbled down to the baseline drawing a double team, but still rising up to sink a 12-footer to take the lead with 8 seconds remaining, sending the crowd into a frenzy, pleading to come back after a missed shot at the other end by San Antonio. The Bullets went on to the NBA Finals where they would lose to Seattle Supersonics in 5 games. While they were unable to repeat, this series ended up being one of the best of the entire decade. On to number 3 on our list, the 1995 Western Conference Semifinals. As the 6th seed, the Houston Rockets had just come off a do-or-die Game 5 against Stockton and Malone in Utah. Hakeem Olajuwon and Clyde Drexler combined for 64 of the 95 points Houston scored that evening, setting up an epic round 2 matchup with Charles Barkley and the 2nd seed Phoenix Suns. Game 1 saw Kevin Johnson, AC Green, and Charles all put up 21 plus points on a combined 60% shooting. It was a team effort and the Rockets had no answer. Even with Sam Cassell coming off the bench and scoring 31, the Suns were just too much. In Game 2, the Suns got off to another hot start that the Rockets just couldn't come back from. Again, the Suns were efficient and nobody stood out for Houston. It really felt like the series was starting to slip. Game 3 in Houston. The Rockets stood tall against the Suns, limiting Barkley to just 5 points on an astonishing 0 for 10 from the field, which meant that the only shots he made were from the charity stripe. A rough game for the Suns star lined up perfectly with a brilliant performance from Hakeem. Olajuwon had 36 and 11 on 60% shooting in a 118-85 blowout over Phoenix in Game 3. Much needed if they wanted a chance at winning this series. Unfortunately for Houston, Kevin Johnson played out his mind in Game 4, putting up 43, 9, and 6 on a ridiculous 75% shooting. Even Hakeem's 38 points wasn't enough to tie up the series. The Suns take a 3-1 series lead and look to close the series out in Phoenix. The story of Game 5 was physicality. The Suns out-rebounded the Rockets 68-49 on the boards, but Houston wouldn't let the chance of a repeat slip away that fast. Hakeem posted a strong 31 and 16, but the difference makers came off the bench. Mario Eli and Chucky Brown combined for 30 points and 11 rebounds in the Rockets' 103-97 victory in Phoenix. Game 6, back in Houston, and the crowd was as loud as ever. The momentum change was underway and the Rockets weren't backing down. Barkley showed out with a really solid 34 and 14, but it wasn't enough as Hakeem was just 2 rebounds short of a triple-double. Ending with 38 and 10 on 59% shooting, clearly Olajuwon made it a priority to get his teammates involved, and it paid off with a 116-103 win over the Suns. Game 7 in Phoenix. With the crowd behind them, the Suns had everything they needed to win this series, except for the momentum. The Rockets' last 2 victories showed their resilience in closeout games. Luckily for Houston, the Suns star, Charles Barkley, will go 7 for 16 from the field for 18 points, but unfortunately, Kevin Johnson had another monster game, putting up a career-high 46, paired with 10 assists. Hakeem and Drexler combined for 58 points, topped off with Sam Cassell putting in a solid 18 points on 60% shooting from the field. But the hero in Game 7 was Mario Elie. Even though he only scored 8 points, with the Rockets down 2 with 7 seconds left, Elie drilled a 3-pointer to win the game for Houston. The shot would go on to be deemed the kiss of death, which saw Elie kiss goodbye to the fans of Phoenix. Houston would go on to beat the Spurs in 6 games and move on to the NBA Finals, where they would sweep the Shaq and Penny-led Orlando Magic. Houston not only came back after falling down 3-1 against the Suns, but were also able to complete the epic repeat, winning in both 94 and 95. Now for the 2 spot. The 1981 Eastern Conference Finals. The season prior, the 76ers fell to the Lakers in the NBA Finals. Looking for redemption, everybody knew the series would be a bloodbath, and whoever came out on top would most likely go on to win the finals. Both teams finished the year with a league-high 62 wins, but Boston had a tiebreaker and got home court. Game 1 had solid performances on both sides. Boston got off to a hot start, but the difference was the Sixers rookie, Andrew Toney. The first-year shooting guard poured in 26 points in his first playoff game, giving Philadelphia a 1-0 lead. Toney followed up with an even better performance in Game 2. With the Sixers star Julius Erving having a rough night, Toney put up 35, 7, and 7 on 47% shooting, but it wasn't enough. The Celtics had 5 players score at least 14 points, and Larry Bird led the way with 34 and 16, cruising to a victory in Game 2. As we moved to Philadelphia for Game 3, the Sixers got off to a hot start, outscoring the Celtics 62-47 in the first half. Boston came back in the second half, but they only shot 37% for the game, while the 76ers shot 46%. Robert Parrish struggled, going 1 for 14 from the field. And even with the fourth quarter push by Boston, the Sixers never gave up the lead and ended up winning by 10. Game 4 saw both teams put up great team effort, with 6 players on each team putting up 10 points and no single player scoring more than 20. The game would come down to the wire, but the Sixers defense was stout, holding the 2-point lead for the last 90 seconds and stopping the Celtics on each attempt to tie the game, ending in a 107-105 win for Philly. The series went back to Boston for Game 5, and the Sixers had all the momentum with a 3-1 series lead, a deficit that had only been overcome twice in NBA playoff history. Philadelphia had people scoring from all over the floor, with 4 of their players scoring 20 or more, but Boston also had their way with the Philadelphia defense. 6 different Celtics had double-digit points, and Bird finished with 32, 11, 5 on 45% shooting from the field. The Boston crowd never gave up on their team, and the Celtics returned the favor by narrowly pulling out the victory, 109-111. This win gave Boston hope, but the 76ers looked to close out the series at home. In Game 6, Dr. J would struggle, going 5 for 17 on 29% shooting. Darryl Dawkins stepped up, going 9 of 14 for 24 points, and with just under a minute left, found themselves in a 1-point game. As the clock winded down, Toney steals the ball from Larry Bird. Now the Sixers had the ball with 25 seconds left. Andrew Toney drives in for a layup, but is blocked by Kevin McHale. The very timely defensive stop sealed the game for the Celtics and sent the series back to a Game 7 in Boston. Going into a do-or-die game for both teams, it was obvious that the Celtics had all the momentum. This series was an all-out war. The Sixers beat the Celtics to advance to the finals the year prior, and Boston wanted redemption. A fast-paced and hard-fought game ensued from the tip. The Sixers ended up with a 5-point lead after the first quarter, but for the next 2 quarters, they just couldn't create any separation. Turnovers and fouls plagued the Sixers throughout the game, but despite not playing their best, 30 seconds left, they were only down by 2. Mo Cheeks went to the line and missed one of his 2 free throws. The Sixers then got a stop on the defensive end, but the Celtics wasted most of the clock, so Philadelphia had to take a timeout with 1 second left. They went for the alley-oop and couldn't convert. The Celtics completed the oh-so-rare 3-1 comeback and went on to beat Moses Malone and the Houston Rockets in 6 games. This was the first championship for the Bird and McHale Parrish trio. And number 1 on our list of greatest comebacks in NBA history, the 2016 NBA Finals. In 2016, the Golden State Warriors were on a historic run. They went 73-9 in the regular season and became the winningest team in NBA history. But they knew to solidify yourself in the history books, you need to cap it off with a championship. The Warriors and Cavaliers faced off the year prior in the finals, with Golden State coming out on top. So the Cavaliers were looking for revenge while the Warriors were looking to make history. Cleveland struggled in Game 1, shooting 38% from the field as a team, while Golden State shot 49% as a team. The Warriors also got some help off the bench, with Sean Livingston scoring 20 points on 80% shooting, giving them a 104-89 victory in Game 1. Game 2 ended up being worse than Game 1. For the Cavaliers, that is. Another bad shooting night from the Cavs, and a blowout ensued. The Warriors won Game 2 by 33 points, and it looked like the series was about to get out of hand. Heading to Cleveland for Game 3, the Cavaliers knew it was now or never to get some kind of momentum going, and they did. The Cavs finally shot well, going 52% from the field as a team, with LeBron and Kyrie combining for 62 points and 14 assists. Game 4 saw the Warriors bounce back after an embarrassing effort in Game 3. Despite a 34-point effort from Kyrie, it wasn't enough as Steph Curry led the Warriors to a 108-97 victory with 38 points on 44% shooting. Though they won the game, Draymond got suspended for reaching the maximum foul points when he hit LeBron below the belt. Despite the suspension, the Warriors still looked to close out the series on their home court. The Cavs responded in epic fashion. LeBron balled out, putting up 41, 16, and 7 on 53% shooting. Kyrie matched LeBron's point total with a 41-point bomb of his own on 70% from the field. The Warriors were clearly rattled and it carried over to Game 6. Even with Draymond returning to the lineup with a 30-point effort from Curry, the Cavs had the momentum and the crowd on their side. LeBron put up 41, 8, and 11 on 59% shooting from the field, leading the Cavaliers to a 115-101 win in Game 6. As the series headed back to Oracle for Game 7, it was obvious Cleveland had every ounce of momentum they could have. But the Warriors understood what they had accomplished through the regular season, and a championship would be their crowning achievement. Game 7 was a back-and-forth battle from the tip-off, with both teams trading baskets for this quarter. But Draymond went off in the second half, shooting 5 of 7 for 15 points and making all 4 of his three-pointers, giving Golden State a 7-point lead going into halftime. Kyrie and J.R. Smith combined for 20 points in the third quarter to bring the game within 3 points. They traded baskets until it was all tied up at 89 with 4.5 minutes remaining. The next 2.5 minutes, both teams would go scoreless until a missed shot by Kyrie turned into a fast break for the Warriors. With Andre Iguodala going for the layup, LeBron came in out of nowhere and blocked a shot attempt off the glass. The most infamous block in NBA history at the most opportune time. A missed shot by LeBron and Curry on the next 2 possessions, and now there's a minute left. Kyrie has the ball on the perimeter with just under a minute left and the shot clock winding down as he hits a dagger 3 over Steph Curry. The first basket in over 3.5 minutes, and it silences the crowd. After a missed shot by Steph and 2 free throws from LeBron, it was over. LeBron won Finals MVP and became the 3rd player in NBA history to have a triple-double in Game 7 of the NBA Finals. But more importantly, the Cavaliers completed the impossible, becoming the first team in NBA history to come back from a 3-1 deficit in the finals and win the championship. Make sure to let us know what video you would like to see next down in the comments, and don't forget to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and subscribe for more NBA content.